With massive sweats, durian on the street, and multiple chicken rices, this is an 8-hour layover in Singapore. Okay, but first let's back up to understand how we got here. So I am taking a trip from New York City to Yunnan, which is southwest part of China, with my lovely mom. And in order to do that, it is a very, very long flight. So we had the opportunity to lay over in Singapore. And as someone who's never been to Singapore, but it is extremely high on my list of places to visit, it was an instant yes to the layover and making a day trip out of the situation. And it also allowed us to take the world's longest flight, business class on Singapore Airlines for 19 hours, which was a one-of-a-kind incredible experience. So that was already a highlight to the start of landing in Singapore. So it's about 5:30 in the morning when we land in Singapore, hence the airport not being too busy at this point. And our first step on the agenda was basically figuring out where we were going to put our luggage. We did not want to lug it around all of Singapore, especially knowing that we'd be doing some walking and then a mix of taxis. So we headed to Jewel, which is essentially this very large mall in the Changi airport. I will talk more about that later when we go through it, but we knew that there was a baggage storage service there that thankfully was open 24 hours and was perfect because, like I said, we were here very early. And I will never forget the moment we stepped off the airplane. I was hit with instant humidity and felt disgusting. Like, you usually felt disgusting after a flight, but man, was it taken up a notch because of the heat. So we knew that we had to change in order to enjoy this Singapore layover day. And I was feeling athletic because that was kind of the best option that I had at that point. And like I said, Changi Airport is very famous for being like one of the world's most incredible airports because it's not really just an airport, there is a whole experience within it. Like this waterfall fountain, which currently the waterfall was not on, didn't realize they turned that off, but I think it was very serene, and looking back on it now, special that we were able to see it in this environment so early in the morning with very few people there, which is usually not the case, and you'll be able to compare later when we visit again. And I definitely would not be able to take a video shot like this later in the day. So as I call our Grab, aka their version of Uber, let me give you some Singapore fun facts. So Singapore is not just one island, it's a collection of 64 islands, including this main one, and they are very known for their strict laws. Like, for example, chewing gum is banned in Singapore, and you can actually be fined or even put in prison for chewing gum and then throwing that on the streets. And there are 4 official languages in Singapore: English, Malay, Mandarin, and Tamil. So that just speaks to how diverse this small but mighty country is. And we were picked up, and I always enjoy the first ride out of an airport because it's your first impression of a city. And instantly I was able to, of course, see like palm trees, and it felt really tropical, but I was also able to see very iconic sights of Singapore, like their Ferris wheel, I almost said carousel, and their Marina Bay Sands, as well as their outdoor garden art, which conveniently was our first stop for the day. Looking back on this now, it was about 7 a.m., and that is not the best time to go to Gardens by the Bay because a lot of their indoor, almost like botanical gardens, are not actually open. But once again, like, it was not crowded at all, basically empty. And so I feel like my mom and I had this whole area of the park to ourselves. And thankfully, even though some of the indoor activations were not open, we were able to see things like this. So Gardens by the Bay is this very cool futuristic park that is in the heart of Singapore, famous for the giant super trees that you see here, as well as some indoor gardens, and then the stunning glass domes that are filled with plants from all over the world, which were at this time not open. So it's free to enter this space that you see here, but the individual domes will cost extra money. Convenient for stop 2, which is Marina Bay Sands Resort, which is probably one of the most iconic hotel resorts in the entire world. So basically there are 3 soaring hotel towers that are topped by the Sand Sky Park, which includes the world's largest rooftop infinity pool that has incredible city views. And unfortunately, we could not take part in these city views because the park wasn't open yet. So that's another thing about landing in Singapore. I still wanted to see all the iconic sites like Marina Bay Sands, but knowing the time of when we were landing, right in the morning, some of these things were just not going to be possible. So I definitely look forward to going back, but it was still so stunning to see it. And then it definitely made my mom excited to stay at the Marina Bay Sands Resort the next time we come back. And it was about 7:30 a.m. at this point now, and we were starting to get a little hungry, so thankfully across the Marina Bay Sands Resort is this luxury mall, which of course has a little exhibition center. We were not there for the convention, and I did feel a little funny in my extremely athletic, sweaty, gnarly outfit with all these business people walking in, as well as walking by all these luxury stores. But the reason that we were here was because this little Singaporean cafe was open, and it was essentially the only cafe or breakfast spot open in the area, so we did have to wait about 20-30 minutes because that convention was also happening, and I'm sure those people needed some breakfast before their meetings. But this was really exciting because, of course, on my food list, and you know my food list was long for Singapore, was the iconic kaya toast with butter, as well as some of their coffee, which you can see being properly prepared right in front of me, and I had to get a front row seat. This is perfect filming. So kaya toast and Nanyang coffee are classic Singaporean breakfast staples, and I really appreciate how simple they are, but in the best way. So kaya toast is basically this crispy, buttery toast that's then spread with this sweet, creamy coconut egg jam. And then the coffee that you saw being prepared is rich, it's bold, and they roast it with sugar and margarine, so it has a unique caramelized flavor. And I was particularly excited that they had an iced option because I was sweating through every pore in my body at this point. And then you also eat the kaya toast with eggs, so you can choose them like lightly poached or boiled. And I grabbed what I thought was soy sauce, but I was in for a very thick time. And so Marina Bay Sands is on Singapore's kind of waterfront, and so outside this luxury resort was beautiful, beautiful Singapore. And so they have some crazy things like the world's only floating Louis Vuitton store, as well as the Apple Island here that you see behind me. Singapore can get a little bougie, and we were definitely in a bougie area. But then I got very excited because I got to cross something off my list that I wasn't sure that we would get to. This is the merlion, which is Singapore's official mascot. And fun fact, the original name for Singapore was Singapura, which means Lion City, hence the lion head that you see on the statue. And then back into the hotel we go to call another Grab because we are going to Chinatown next. And I really enjoyed chatting in Mandarin and English with all of the Grab drivers. I feel like it's a great way to learn about the culture and city through the actual locals. And the drivers were the ones that we had access to. We get dropped off at Pagoda Street, and instantly I am very enamored by this sculpture that you see here, which essentially is tied to a very large Hindu temple. We did not go in, but passing by, it was very beautiful, and I was like staring at the intricacies of the sculpture that lived on the roof at the top. So this was a great area for a walking mini tour because there are essentially shop houses, temples, and stores all along these streets. So I felt like every which way we turned, we would be successful in finding something. And then instantly we were able to find, and I was so in love with all the architecture and especially all of the beautiful colors that really made the city feel vibrant. Turn the corner on one of the streets, we instantly see these fruit vendors, and I was excited because there were so many fruits that I had never seen before but I had only heard of, but we don't have in the US. But my mom's eyes definitely instantly lit up because she saw durian. So my mom had her own Singapore bucket list, and one of the items was eating durian in a place like Singapore that is known for it. So durian is the spiky fruit that you see here, and it's actually quite known for being extremely stinky, but having the meat be very soft and fleshy and sweet. And I have tried durian flavored items. I will be honest, it's not my favorite because it has this like funk to it. but I've never actually tried fresh durian. So my mom ordered the best of the best durian for us to munch on, and the experience was even better knowing that we were going to eat it off the side of the street with gloves to really get in there.
Durian in Singapore, highly recommended by the owner of the stall.
We have to put the gloves on.
It's amazing.
Best durian here?
Yeah. For sure.
I got to try the best of the best durian, and I will be honest, it's still not my favorite because it really does have that funk and then this like interestingly contrasting soft texture, but it was really special to see my mom eat it and kind of have her little dream on her list checked off. So with durian all up in our bellies, it was time to continue looking through the shops, and I am a sucker for anything that has a cute design, and I always get a postcard on every single vacation or trip that I go to, so that was checked off here as well. And then we continued along the Chinatown streets. Okay, next on our list in Chinatown is the Buddha Tooth Relic Temple, which is a Tang Dynasty style Buddhist temple that people believe has a sacred tooth relic, hence the name, of Buddha himself that is displayed in this giant golden sculpture. Of course, it's a place of worship, but it also has a museum with Buddhist art and history, and my family is not necessarily religious or Buddhist ourselves, but I felt like instantly when I walked in here with my mom, she was in a mood to pray and kind of honor our family and ancestors, which was a special experience because I have never seen her do that, and so I kind of wanted to partake. And I feel like, yes, Buddhism is a religion, but it's also a philosophy that has a lot of influence on, of course, East Asian cultures. So for example, things that my family does really practice, like our zodiac animals and the fact that each of us in our family are an animal, and then that kind of displays what our personality is. Like the Buddhist temple had specific gods for each zodiac animal that you could pray to, so we did definitely do that and find each and every one of the members of our family and pray specifically, and it was really, really mesmerizing watching this chant happening live in real time by these Buddhist monks. So even if you are not religious yourself, I would highly recommend visiting. It is a beautiful way to see the Buddhist culture. And so once we are out of there, once again, more touristy shops and places with souvenirs that I just kind of do window shopping for. And there are so many cute designs. I feel like it's Asia. So there's no shortage of cute things. That's what Asia is known for. And I really wish I could have bought every single thing here, but I was like, for the sake of my suitcase, maybe not the best idea. But there were even little food earrings, which, if you know me, is so up my alley, so I was extremely, extremely tempted. So know that you won't be in short supply for souvenirs when you come here. But okay, next up is the one that I was most excited about and top of my list. So we are visiting a hawker center, specifically the Maxwell Food Center off the side of Chinatown. So hawker centers are open-air food courts where dozens of independent stalls will serve up a huge variety of very affordable, delicious local dishes all under one roof. And they have a very prominent scene in Crazy Rich Asians, which does, of course, take place in Singapore. So I feel like that kind of made it more, I'd say, at least mainstream to individuals in the US and outside of Asia. So a through line of the whole day has been that it's been hot and humid and we are very sticky. So an instant first step that caught our eye was the fresh coconut. My mom is a big coconut gal. I will say this was humongous and larger than my head, but there was actually not that much juice or meat in it, but it was still a good first grab to kind of give us a preview into what was about to happen. And then the most famous stall in this food center is Tian Tian Hainanese chicken rice, which is probably one of Singapore's most famous dishes, and this stall particularly is famous because Anthony Bourdain ate here. May he rest in peace, oh wonderful foodie man. So as you can see, this one has a much longer line than any of the other stalls in this entire center. So luckily, me and my mom were tag teaming. She waited online, and while she was doing that, I went to go find another beverage because we were sweaty. And thankfully, right nearby, there was this glowing, colorful stall. I saw sugarcane juice, and I was like, all right, that is it for me. I don't get to have it much in the US, but it is definitely something that is local and common in Singapore. And this was only like $2, so it was even better for that sense. We drank it probably within like 30 seconds while we were waiting online. And the line itself moved relatively quickly. We probably only waited like 25-30 minutes. So I will say, if you are in this food center, do not be intimidated by the line. It is definitely worth it. So when thinking of what to order, of course, it was a no-brainer. Chicken over rice was what we were here for today. And they did ask me if I wanted some vegetables on the side, but I said it really quickly, and I just honestly was overwhelmed. I was like, yes, but it was good to get our veggies in. And this chicken over rice also is an affordable find. Basically everything in a hawker center is affordable, but it was only about $5-6 or so. And you will see that when you get chicken over rice, there are two different types of chicken. You can get it roasted or poached. And poached is definitely the traditional way to go. And I brought it into our little table that we were sharing with folks. And look at this beautiful chicken over rice. I rarely get to eat this, but I have actually grown up eating it because I used to work at a Malaysian restaurant in high school. So anytime I eat chicken over rice, it feels very nostalgic actually. And that restaurant was kind of the first time I was introduced to this dish. And the two best parts of this dish are this ginger spicy sauce that I want to lather on top of everything, and the ginger rice. So the ginger rice is fragrant, and basically it's jasmine rice that they cook in a flavorful broth that's typically made from poaching the chicken along with aromatics like ginger and garlic. And the broth basically infuses into that rice and gives it that incredibly savory flavor while the chicken fat is in there and adding wonderful goodness. And so, like I mentioned, lots of tag teaming. So while I got my chicken over rice, my mom waited in line for what you'll see is a fishball soup as well as some noodles. And my mom was very excited when she saw that stall, which probably had the second longest line because this was a dish, she said, from her childhood. We downed that. I got a black sesame drink. The drinks we're really drinking today, I've had a bajillion beverages by this point. But I loved the chicken rice so much that I felt like I had to get another one. So we are hang Chinese chicken rice. Not nearly as long as a line, but I thought, okay, let's go give another spot a chance. And I was not about to wait in another 30-minute line. I will say this one was good as well, but not nearly as good as the original spot that we went to, just because I think the chicken was more flavorful and the rice was definitely more fragrant and juicy that first time. And like I said, the beverages were beveraging because I felt like I couldn't eat this chicken rice without something to kind of balance it out. And I felt like watermelon juice was good because, as you'll see, I am incredibly sweaty at this point and I look mildly gross. But so now that the lunch rush was over, we decided to go back to the Changi airport because now it was a normal time of the day, not 5 a.m., which meant stores would be open and we can get the full experience of the mall. I will say, had this been a different day, we probably would have gone back to Marina Bay Sands and looked at their sky rooftop. But being with my mom and knowing that we were essentially still jet lagged, yada, 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 we wanted to also balance and enjoy, but also be reasonable about it because we still had the rest of our actual vacation to come. Okay, we were back in the airport. I was very intrigued by this Miffy activation. I did not get anything, but like I said before, if I see something cute, I will probably 99% of the time stop. Okay, and here you'll see once again is the waterfall. Named the Rain Vortex, it's the world's tallest indoor waterfall at 130 feet. And if you remember from the morning, it looks completely different. There was basically no one there when we were there at 5 a.m. and now it is bustling. Don't worry, if you wanted to see more of that waterfall, there's more to come. But in the meantime, so Changi Airport has a massive mall, which means I wanted to hit up any unique stores that I don't get to see in the US, like this Pokemon Center. I have never seen so many plushies for relatively niche Pokemon before. I will say Flygon is my favorite Pokemon. I did not find it there, but I am not surprised if they actually did have it, and I just did not look thoroughly enough. Okay, so the next part, like I mentioned, there was more to the waterfall to come. So if you go all the way to the top of Changi Airport, you can basically buy tickets and do their kind of skywalk bridge, as well as go up to the park at the top of the airport. So the ticket was about $20 per person. I would say if you enjoy photos and aesthetic environments, this is definitely for you. I wouldn't say it's a must visit, but it is really cool because we're the only ones essentially on the bridge at this point because it's just a ticketed experience. And we are all the way up on the 7th floor. So you're all very high up and you get to see a view unlike any other. And a fun fact, around the waterfall is the Shiseido Forest Valley, which is like a multi-level indoor rainforest that has over 2,000 trees and 100,000 shrubs. So I guess if you have some extra time at the airport and you're looking to kill time, you can count all 100,000 of those shrubs. If anyone does that, let me know how it goes. Okay, and then next, quick story time because I never want to forget this moment. So as we are at the literal top of the Changi airport in Singapore, my mom gets a notification on her Ring app, aka like a home security camera app, that says there is movement in our family's garage. And mind you, it's like 3 a.m. all the way back in the US where my family, aka my dad and my sister, are living. And basically, it says that there's movement in the garage, and my mom is understandably freaking out. And then we sit outside of the bridge. We've made it through the steam, and use that airport Wi-Fi to basically call my dad, my sweet dad, at 3 a.m. in the morning for him to go and check out the garage, which happens to be a spider web that is right in front of the camera. So shout out to my dad who woke up and then cleaned the spider web so that my mom would no longer get Ring notifications and not feel any anxiety. And then here we are, much calmer now, going through their little rooftop garden, which is included in that $20 ticket that I mentioned. Once again, not a must visit, but I think it was a nice way to pass some time indoors, and it's very good if anyone likes photos or aesthetically placed flowers that look like animals. And then we only have a couple of hours until our flight to China, so we head all the way down to the bottom of the airport, pick up our luggage, and then head to a lounge nearby because, like I mentioned, we are extremely sticky, and this lounge has an option to shower. So for this lounge, it's a pay to enter. I believe that they do take priority pass if you have that, say, through your credit card. But here there are, like a lounge often has, unlimited drinks, and our tickets include 2 meals as well. So I did have more items on my food bucket list for Singapore that I did not get to check off. So this is chili crab, as well as a curry laksa noodle soup. And I know that these are probably not the best versions of the dishes that I'm going to get in this country, not even close. But given the situation that we were in and knowing that we had a flight and that I was getting mildly deliriously tired, I was like, all right, we are going to take what we can get, and we're still eating it in Singapore, so we are going to enjoy. And in probably one of the most expensive but worth it showers I've ever taken in my life, we are at the lounge. It was actually quite a nice shower. Like, I was not expecting it. Hello everyone. That was extremely necessary and satisfying. The shower was so good that you caught me in my first ever naked but covered with a towel voiceover live. So there you go. That tells you how good it was. And of course, I was like, let me use all the amenities here, like the Dyson. And with that, we do our final little airport stroll. And this is definitely one of the best airports to spend many an hour in. Even if you go to Singapore and you don't get to actually venture outside the airport, like, you are not at a loss. Like, you will be able to experience so many things: food, lounges, stores, waterfalls, you name it, this airport has it. And as we head into our next flight to go to China, I am so grateful that we picked the flight that had a layover in Singapore. So Singapore, you only got me for 8 hours, but I promise I will be back for many more hours. And I know you're gonna make me sweat, but it'll be worth it.